2 years now, guys.
Premeditated. Jessica Schneider, thanks very much. Let's discuss now with Wajat Ali. He's a contributed op-ed writer for the New York Times. Wajat, it's so good to have you this morning, and you were right on this as it was happening. A series of tweets that helped just put this into context, and I'm just going to quote from one of them here. You say that he, the attacker, was inspired by a right-wing ideological infrastructure that thrives, recruits, and radicalizes online. And you see a lot of that language in this manifesto here. Is there evidence, and you've been covering this for some time, that more people in more places around the world are being inspired by this kind of thing to commit acts of violence targeting Muslims?
Yeah, allow me to be bold, Jim. What we're witnessing around the world is the death rattle of white supremacy that has become the death march of white supremacy. This is a globalized ideology of supremacy that believes that white people, whoever represents white people, are superior, and they have a shared fear and conspiracy theory, something called the white genocide or the Great Replacement, which says that Jews are the head of this cabal that are trying to weaken and subordinate the white race, specifically through the savages. That's us, the Muslims, black people, Latinos. And if you see this language of invasion and trying to punish the immigrants and take revenge against them, well, that was used allegedly by this New Zealand shooter. That was also the language used by Anders Breivik in 2011, the mass murderer who killed 77 people and left a 1,500-page manifesto saying he wants to punish Europe for multiculturalism and pro-immigration and for integrating Muslims. And also we saw in Quebec, right, 2 years ago, the shooter who was anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim. He went and he killed 6 people, where? At a mosque. Yeah. Also, I want to just make this point, this connection. This ideology, this conspiracy theory has been mainstreamed. I want to be really bold here, and you can connect the dots. This has been mainstreamed by Republican elected officials such as Congressman Steve King, who has sworn by the replacement theory. He's tweeted about it, that we cannot replace our civilization with their babies, right? And so Donald Trump, in the midterm elections in 2018, when he's promoting the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of George Soros, the Hungarian Jewish-American billionaire, allegedly funding the caravan of rapists and criminals and Middle Eastern suspects who are going to invade us, that language sounds very similar to the language used in this manifesto. And that's why there's a link here. There's a reason why the #1 domestic terror threat in America, according to the FBI, are these white supremacists. It's the #1 domestic terror threat according to the number of plots. And we have to call it out for what it is. It's an act of domestic terrorism, which makes all our communities unsafe. Because this is not the first time a religious house of worship has been the site of a mass murder. It's happened to Sikh temples. It just happened in October. Yep. In the Tree of Life Synagogue, where 11 people died, and the shooter, Jim and Poppy, said what? He wanted to punish Hayas. He wanted to punish organizations that were bringing in refugees, and he reshared a post on Gab, a right-wing social media site, that said that we have to punish the filthy, evil Jews for bringing in the filthy, evil Muslims. The connections are right there.
It's a great point, Poppy. You know, the hate is connected. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting at a synagogue, but similar hate driving that against Jews, similar hate to what we saw today in Christchurch, Poppy.
Wajat, what is the most effective tool to tamp it down?
Oh, let's see the world. There's first and foremost, you have to call it out for what it is. You have to acknowledge it. You have to call it domestic terrorism. Secondly, you have to look at the facts and listen to our counterterrorism experts and national security experts that says they need more resources, they need education, you need an off-ramp for these individuals who are being radicalized online. So you need to fund groups like Life After Hate that was getting funding, by the way, from President Obama and his administration, but when President Trump came into office, all of a sudden Life After Hate was defunded. You need to have prosecution of these individuals as terrorists, name them as terrorists, and we need to have a really come to Jesus moment here in America, where we have to realize that if there is a suspect who happens to be a white man, you don't call him a lone ranger, right, or a lone wolf, in their double standard when it's a Muslim suspect. We have to have equal language and equal coverage, because a Georgia State University study that came out last year says that when a suspect who commits the same exact act of domestic terrorism happens to be Muslim, there's 7 times more coverage. When it's a white man, 7 times less. So let's have equality here when it comes to the language, when it comes to the prosecution. Let's have education, awareness. And I want the President of the United States of America, President Trump, to tweet something. Because when the suspect is an ISIS suspect, he tweets hard.
He did.
He tweets he's going to get them. He's going to go after them. He's going to do extreme vetting. But when it comes to Charlottesville, very fine people.
If we could, I don't know in the control room, do we have the president's tweet from this morning about this condemning the attack? Okay, we don't have
Okay,
it.
the
but
president did condemn.
He did that early this morning.
But it
Look,
came late, Poppy. It came late because last night when this was happening, you know what he tweeted out? He tweeted out a Breitbart article. And Breitbart is a site for promoting and mainstreaming much of this anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-Muslim sentiment the past few years. And Steve Bannon, who is his chief advisor, his #1 book that he recommends is the novel Camp of Saints. So you know what Camp of Saints is all about? It's a dystopian, fictional, racist novel which warns about brown immigrants invading and overtaking Europe. Notice the connections.
Let me just read the president's message this morning. Quote, "My warmest sympathy and best wishes goes out to the people